Hey everybody, welcome to this week's St. Simon and Jude's Youth Ministry podcast. My name is David Mims,
I'm Jack the Wise.
and today we are joined by a very special guest.
Hi, I'm John Masters.
Um, Today we are continuing a three-part series that we started last week about finding God in these certain stages of our lives. The three um, perceived graduations is kind of what we've been calling it. Last week we talked about how you find God in high school. This week we're going to be talking about how you find God and see God in college. Um, and Next week we're going to be talking about how you can find and see God through confirmation and the confirmation process. Um, Confirmation is why we call it perceived graduations. It's because we did throw that in there. And it actually works out great because John, you are still attending college, correct?
Heck yeah, I am.
So why don't you share with us a little bit about where you go, what you're studying, your dreams, hopes, and aspirations?
My dreams, hopes, and aspirations. All right, so I go to the University of Texas at Tyler Swoop Swoop University, as I like to call it, up in Tyler, Texas, which is about 3 hours away from Woodlands. I am studying speech communication, which actually the degree name got changed this year by the department to communication studies,
Okay.
which think my degree will still say speech communication because I officially didn't change because I didn't want to take extra courses. But yeah, basically, the whole degree is like I like thinking about how people communicate with one another,
Okay.
put theory to it, put research on things like that. I like to talk. Um, yeah, so, and dreams, hopes, and aspirations is to graduate within these last two semesters right now because I'm taking that good old fifth year victory lap. No shame about it at all.
Oh no,
Um,
absolutely not.
Nothing wrong with that. It was great, my victory lap. So I feel you.
I'm the
Dude, the
only one
victory
here
lap.
who did not take a victory lap.
I was talking to
Overachiever.
one of my friends before we got on this, and she was just, I was like, yeah, I have some friends that are just overachiever and graduate college in like 3 or 4 years. And she was like, I did it in 3 or 4 years. I did it in 3 years. And I was like, you're one of them.
Yeah, my best friend's little sister graduated in three, and I'm like, what? My wife could have graduated in three, but she was like, nah, I'm good. And took on an
Why?
extra
Why
minor.
would you?
Yeah, she took on an extra minor just so that she could graduate in 4 years instead of three. John, once again, thank you so much for joining us over here. Um, we'll go ahead and just start with you since you're fresh blood. You're still getting that college experience. Uh,
Oh,
how
yeah.
how did what has your college experience been like so far?
Yeah, so my college experience has been a roller coaster more than high school was. Yeah, so if you listen to the podcast about high school, shameless plug, you would know like high school was a challenge for me. Academically, wasn't. So when I got to college, I was an electrical engineering major.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and so I learned very quickly that college was a lot harder than high school.
Mm-hmm.
There's this thing called studying
Yeah.
didn't know how to do. Um, and so I have done the major change twice. So I was an electrical engineering major my first semester.
Okay.
Second semester, I went quote unquote undecided because I couldn't officially become undecided, but I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Okay.
So sophomore year, I was a chemistry major with a minor in education because I was like, I want to be a chemistry teacher. Um, Oh, that was fun. I got to teach in the classroom with little eighth graders, and they were hilarious. Um, and I
Jack
learned
knows
very
all about
quickly that
that.
chemistry. Um, I was and chemistry was hard, and so I was like, well, I don't think I'm called to be a science person. And so after a lot of major experiences, major and breakthroughs, I landed on communications. Yeah, and so I've been plugged in at my university all 4 years. So my sister actually went to UT Tyler with me.
Oh,
She was a
awesome.
grad student when I was there. Yeah, UT Tyler was my last option because I didn't want to go to college with my sister, but I love her anyway. Um,
That's
it was
I'll just tell you that's what every A&M fan has ever wanted to hear from someone who goes to UT.
hey, A&M was my first choice, and I'm still an Aggie at heart, so it's fine. And so she was a big Greek life person, and so Greek life knew of me going in. So like
Okay.
fraternity really wanted me rush, and I didn't rush um, until I didn't actually officially. I've actually never gone through the rush process, but I'm actually a founding father of Pi Kappa Phi fraternity. Um, as of this last semester was when I became a founding father. And I am vice president, interim president of the fraternity right now. It's been super fun, just like getting organizations rolling. I helped found the disc golf club, and my pride and joy is the Catholic Center that I've been a part of all 4 years at UT Tyler. I love that place. The place has gone through so many different changes, and it's been beautiful for me to see. We've been blessed with three different chaplains over the 4 years that I've been there.
Wow.
All great. Pray for them a lot. Um, and so, um, college has been a roller coaster to say the least. Of just like having my super lows of just like I'm a terrible student. I don't know how to do this. Calling my mom freshman year because I fell off my bike and I was in pain because I'm a mama's boy. And she was like, "Honey, I'm 3 hours away," and I was like, "I know." Um, so it's just been a lot of growth within the 4 years I've had so far of college.
Yeah, it sounds like college for you has really been um, maybe from what you shared, not so much who am I, but what is God calling me to?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and kind of learning how to take the gifts that God's given you, and the ones that He hasn't given you, and find where He's calling you to use those. So that's awesome.
I think the perfect way to describe John, you can correct me, is you did everything, and so you figure out what you don't want to do, and that helped you figure out what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I would say that is just like the greatest analogy I like to use is like doors of just like, okay, I come knocking on this door of electrical engineering. God keeps the door locked under key. I'm like, okay, no. And then I just kept like go knocking on different doors.
Hmm.
Eventually a door opened and I walked through it and am resting that truth that I've found so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Jack, how about you? What was your college experience like?
That's, yeah, I'll say like John, like a roller coaster. I started it at one state and I finished in a different state, and so it was a lot of highs and lows. But, during college, like I told you in the podcast, and multiple times how I transferred. Then
Hmm.
I transferred mid year to a new school, which for any of my high school listeners listening to parents, never do that. Wait, sit the full year at the college you're at, then transfer. Because you transfer mid year, not very fun. And so it was a lot of like, hey, like I transferred to a new school. I'm not really I don't have like the social dynamics that my brother was, right? So like my first day on campus at Loyola University, Maryland, where I transferred to, someone asked me, "Oh, are you Lane Court Joe Wise?" And Lane Court was the party dorm. So they asked me like, "Oh, are you the part? Are you Joe Wise's brother?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's me." It's like, "Oh, he threw awesome parties." So that was my first interaction on college campus. Like, okay, so like contract of like I'm not him socially, but I was lucky enough like in college where like at a liberal arts university they force you to take all the classes and more, and so I was able to discover political science and philosophy and theology, and and it really helped me grow. It was stressful because I stupidly enough decided to take on a new sport in college, and then I got addicted because I'm just a nut. So I was training 20 hours a week while doing a full class load. So basically, all I did was wake up, train, sleep, train some more, do homework. And so like that was my college experience. But like through that, I was able to go to Europe and race a bike, which is
Yeah.
mind blowing. I was able to go like all these states up and down the Maryland seaboard, like Virginia and Vermont and Pennsylvania, and like I discovered like there's a University of California in Pennsylvania. Like who knew?
What?
And so I did all these things like
Actually, I think I
so
knew
it was
that.
like yeah, it was like really it was a lot of highs and then it was like also a lot of lows because like I got concussion one of my I think it was my sophomore year, which I don't remember like 3 weeks of that sophomore year from how bad the concussions were.
How'd you get a
And so,
concussion? You you ride bikes. Did you? He
um,
wasn't wearing his helmet, ladies and gentlemen.
I was wearing my helmet. It cracked that helmet right through, and I finished the race because my mom says is quit crying about it, and so so I that was something hard, right? And then I ended up tearing my knee and hip one
Hmm.
year, so I had to end up staying. So I got to college national championships, and the second day there during the race, I tear my hip like 20 miles
Oh,
into an 80-mile race. And the worst part is like they don't come and get you. Like either you have to call 911 on the side of the road or limp your butt back to the start line because it's a loop. And so I had to ride like 20 miles on one leg back to the start line and get transported down the mountain with a
Mm.
torn
oh,
hip. But that
jeez.
like yeah, so then I had to go to summer school and take finals one with a torn hip, and so I was forced to stay back there and rehab my hip because at the time that was the best thing. But then like that gave me the opportunity for me to get involved in student life.
Hmm.
So I was the lead RA for a summer building 2 years in a row, and oh my god, if you want to look what an unmoral life is, go to summer school in college because that's it's pretty trippy. But during that process of staying the summer, I also discovered like being able to this nonprofit called Baltimore Youth Cycling. So I was able to get involved with them, and I put over 500 hours of volunteering with them, like of working with kids, teaching kids how to ride bikes, teaching interskids. So like I fell in love with like that's when it all clicked of like that's what I wanted to do with my life was like work with kids. So like John says like it was such a high and low of a lot of things, but like I can like firmly say at the end of my college career, like there wasn't a thing at Loyola which I wasn't a part of, and so like it was such a great time. Like all the all the bad stuff set up really good stuff. So it was like
Yeah. And
it was pretty nice.
I would definitely recommend anybody who's listening, uh, parents, if one of your youth are looking to possibly change colleges, or if you don't agree with their college choice, definitely go talk to Jack. He's lived it, he's been through it, and I mean, as you guys just heard, he thrived in the new environment. Um, despite the fact that it sounds like he was very injury prone in college.
Yeah, it's like I would be an interesting word because I have like very severe learning disability, so like I wasn't thriving. So like as a person never destined to go to college by some doctors, like getting to college was a win, and then like it's like it took me a while to figure out okay, this is how we're gonna learn, Jack. And so once I figured that out, I hit it. But yeah, it's
Hey,
I mean
hey,
if my dumb brain can go to college, that means like anybody else can like succeed in college. So like
that's what I'm saying. If you've been told by doctors that you're not, like, you probably wouldn't be able to even go to college, and you graduated and were successful, like, dang, yeah, you thrived. And it sounds like, and Jack, it also sounds like you thrived socially, eventually. Maybe not as the party thrower, which I'm very glad to be able to say over uh, over this podcast. But but in your own way through discovering new things, which is also an amazing part of college is trying new things and meeting new people. Uh, and I'd say for me, college was really all about me learning more about myself. Um, I went to college. I only applied to one school. I got in.
Ooh.
Um, I went there. I knew exactly what I was going to study from day one. I graduated with that degree. Um, so, there wasn't really ever a question for me about what I was going to study, where I was going to go. But it was really more about me learning about myself. Uh, you know, I learned more about my faith in college, which I mean I would hope, seeing as I'm a theology major. Um, but I also learned more about like my personal spirituality while I was in college. Is really where I found a love for the angels, a love for the divine mercy, and even my passion for the Eucharist was ignited. I made friends who I still talk to every day, even though they're all over the United States. Um, and I also learned uh, some big things about myself, and just the fact that it was when my dad passed away. My dad passed away my junior year, um, and I got to and I went through the stages of depression while in college in Ohio when my family's in the Woodlands. Um, it was definitely an interesting journey. I didn't. Alexis, my now wife, was in was going to school in Alabama, so I went through 4 years of long distance. Um,
Ooh.
there's nothing like I said, my college experience was all me learning who I was, both the good and bad of myself, the things that I love about myself and the things that I hate about myself. Um, the things that I'm really good at and the things that I'm really bad at. Uh, and the just how far I'll go for a story. Um, I love whenever I was in Austria, I got to study abroad for 6 months in Austria, and while I was there, my entire goal was to make stories, and I've got plenty of them. Um, I was a summer missionary for a Life Teen camp in Georgia, and man, it was incredible the ways that God just worked in my life through that. I was a missionary in Honduras my senior year, um, and it was so beautiful to just see how you can serve somebody without really. I understood a little bit of the language, but I was in no way, shape, or form fluent. Um, I discovered uh, it was really in college that my love of video games was founded. Um, and as I'm sure everybody knows, I very much enjoy video games. So it was really just a lot of finding the people and um, the people that would become my lifelong friends and um, learning who I am as a person, more so than uh, finding out what God wanted me to do with my life or things along those lines.
That's
Um,
a great way to put it. I always, I don't, I guess laughs long thing. I always kind of smirk uh, when high school seniors tell me, "Oh, I have it all figured out. This is how my life is going to be when I get to college," and I just kind of laugh because I think the three of us can attest. Like in college, like you think you know who you are and you think you know what your plan is, and then you just
yeah,
you just grow and you learn and you discover who you are during those 4 years in an exponential way that you really don't really can't really fathom when you're entering into like when you're exiting high school and entering college. It's like I know if I sat there as a senior year and looked where I am now and said this is my ending, I would have told him you're crazy. I mean, like, there's no way you're becoming that. Like the universe and God unveils himself slowly and it reveals and you grow and like through like different stories and events, like you said, and you learn who yourself is.
Oh yeah, and it really is amazing that how God gives us exactly what we need in the moment, so that we can eventually get what we need later on. Um, you know, here's just a quick story from uh, my college time period. Not necessarily while I was at college, but so after I was a summer missionary, I went that winter break. They have a retreat for all of the people who were summer missionaries the summer before. So I went to that, and while I was there, I was like, man, I just really feel like it's heavy on my heart to get a spiritual director. Uh, so I went and I asked the first person who came to mind. I asked him, and he was like, "No, I'm not going to be your spiritual director. We're close friends, like, but I'm not feeling called to be your spiritual director." And I was like, "Okay, well, awkward." The only other priest who was there the very first day got up and said, "And just so you guys know, if you're looking for a spiritual director, it's going to be a no from me because I've got so many people already." And I'm like, well, now what am I going to do? Like, the only two people that were here for spiritual direction um, wouldn't aren't going to do it. So I went in. I was going to the chapel every day during lunch, um, and the priest who had got up and the other priest got was in there with me. And as I left, he followed me and we started getting into this conversation. Um, and short and sweet of it is at the end, I was like, "Will you be my spiritual director?" And he goes, "I don't know why I'm saying this, but yes, I will." Um,
Classic.
2 months later, my dad passed away.
Hmm.
Like God had put it on my heart to go find a spiritual director, um, and then I found one who was gonna be everything that I was looking for. Someone who would push me, all of those good things. Um, and 2 months later, my dad passed away, and um, I honestly was doing pretty well for that next semester when he was my spiritual director because I constantly had someone pushing me to make sure that I was okay. So, like I said, in be open to the things that God's putting on your heart in the moment because you may want them later on. That's one of the big things I learned in college. So, anyways, moving on to our next question. Um, John, we've been starting with you. So, how did you find God during your college experience? What were some of the places or people or things that happened where you found God?
Um, to put it shortly, I messed up a lot. Not like big time mess up, but like um I like to say college is like the first true test of like your faith. It's like the theme of confirmation, like confirmation, your faith becomes yours, but like we're still living at home, so it's like kind of still like you're with mom and dad,
Mm-hmm.
or my case, mom, and so we would still do the church thing. But like I go college, and it was like the first true test of like, all right, John, you gonna be Catholic or not?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I like got connected with the Catholic ministry very quickly. Um, and it was through a community at the Catholic Center mainly of how I found God. Um, through this organization that I love. A lot of people have differing opinions on the organization, but Focus, the
Mm-hmm.
Fellowship of Catholic University Students, love them to death. Yeah, and no longer at UT Tyler just because of finances. So sad. But my the two missionaries that invested in me in our discipleship relationship,
Mhm.
super helpful for my formation of like moving from this. Um, I would say my like faith was more emotion based in
Uh-huh.
high school to like an actual foundation. Take your encounter and make it a foundation and go from
Yeah.
there. So through my two disciplers, one is actually still in Tyler now. So I'm super glad that I get to hang out with him. He's so great. Yeah, so through that community, but as well as like hardships I went through in college. Like high school, I went through hardships, but like college was like the first time I dealt with like self doubt and I was my identity my freshman year was not rooted in Christ per se. It
Mhm.
was rooted in like my grades because it was the first time I'd ever experienced like failure, and so I got super like depressed. Um, and like it came to a December day where I was just like, all right, like this is who I am and this is what I'm gonna be. Like I tattooed that date on my shoulder. Like I sent David the picture right after I got the
Yeah.
tattoo, and he
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, and so um, I would say through different retreats I've been on, I've done. This is a very popular retreat called Awakening that a lot of colleges have. So I went on Awakening my first year. If you're gonna go to A&M, I don't know if you'll get in your first year because IE Awakening is massive.
It is.
But I've been at so many different awakenings and like people pouring into me, but also me pouring into others and seeing conversion happen.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, through awakenings, through conference I went to with Focus, but also like working at a Catholic summer camp. So I didn't work at a Life Teen camp, but I worked at a small Catholic camp up in Big Sandy, Texas, which is about 45 minutes outside of Tyler, called the Pines. So like there was a lot of growth that happened over my 3 summers I did there. This last summer I was in charge of middle school ministry, and I loved those campers like to death because like they are the fun age where they're not too cool for God, but they're starting to ask questions.
Yeah.
Like why? Um, like I am open to like question them and like yeah, just being um, investing into others, um, failing a lot, um, yeah, and like really coming to terms with like how much I need community. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, like my last year was my year of just like um, I had a very rough semester. Like I almost flunked out of college that semester. I got straight Fs. I was last semester, like all of junior year. That was when I decided chemistry wasn't for me. I looked I like my life. I almost transferred from UT Tyler. Pulled the mid-year transfer. Didn't. Um,
Like
and
yourself
like
for that.
um, and so seeing like community that's invested into me, the accountability that's there for me, but also like going into like quote unquote deep of like the college campus and like staying outside of the bubble of the Catholic Center. Because I'm of the opinion of just like, okay, I have this faith. If we're called to be missionaries by our baptism, then I should be sharing it on campus. Um, so that's like why I got involved in different organizations, and like I've seen different people who have all these different opinions, and like having great deep conversations with someone at like Applebee's and just um like arguing theology, and I'm like, this is great. I wish you were Catholic. And so let's say like through those failures, through those triumphs, really just coming to a conviction of just like, okay, this is my faith. Like this isn't mom's faith.
Mhm.
If you know my mother, you love her. She's an angel. No one can tell me differently. I know she's a sinner, but no one can tell me differently. Uh,
Every saint's a sinner.
right. Yeah, and so Yeah,
Well,
it was like
except for Mary, but you get my point.
except for Mary.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, and so it's just like through my continual like conversions that have happened through college of just like reminding myself of like simple gospel presentation. Because that's like really when I started being Catholic, I would say like I'm a cradle Catholic, but I would say I've been Catholic for 3 to 4 years, like of truly living out the Catholic faith.
Oh yeah,
Um,
is every Catholic, if you don't have that moment where you say, that's when I became passionate. I mean, that's awesome. Like everybody's testimony is different, but many Catholics today have that moment where they kind of had that realization of the faith. And I think one of the things that I do want to bring up is you talked a lot about awakening, and awakening is something that is very common in colleges. Parents, if your kids go to college with an awakening retreat, they will probably come back and tell you how amazing it is. And the one thing that I can tell you is that if you're sitting there kind of going, well, I want something like this, something to help me rejuvenate my faith, awakening retreats are very similar to Acts retreats.
what I
I know that we have them here at St. Simon and Jude. I know that St. Anthony sends people. I know that Sacred Heart sends people. Most parishes in our archdiocese send people on Acts retreats. So if you guys are wondering about ways that you can have this kind of same experience, I highly recommend it. But I don't recommend anybody under the age of probably uh, 25 go. And even 25 is kind of pushing it for me, being someone who's been on one. But yeah, John, that's awesome. The things that we get involved in are so important, and those decisions to be involved in our Catholic centers, our finding camps that we can go be at. Those things are huge for our college experience and finding God in them. Um, Jack, what about you?
Ooh, funny God. Oh, am I gonna tick my mother off because paid the price to go to a Catholic university,
Uh-huh.
and at that point in my life, I was like, yeah, maybe, like, maybe I'll go to mass. Like I went to mass one every 2 weeks. That's pretty good because I was taking theology classes and like I was like, yeah, like I already know all this stuff. Like you're forced to take theology 101, which is like biographical tales of the Bible, and I aced that. So I'm like, I know everything about this. I am good. Like, what are they gonna tell me that like 8 years of Catholic school other tells me at the mass? So I was like, I like wasn't super involved, and like we had every single retreat that campus ministry offered. Like we had Kairos, we had the Jesuit versus Awakening, we had a Jesuit corps, we had like all these opportunities. And I was like, I'm too busy. I do my own thing. And
So,
so like
hold on. I'm gonna just pause you right there. That that line right there will either save your life in college or it will ruin your college experience. Um, I'm too busy. It will be the line that you say that will either save your college experience or destroy it. So be very careful with that one, as Jack is giving a great example of ways that it could have enhanced his. So please continue.
yeah, and like hindsight, right? There's like a spiritual retreat where basically like you go and you pray and you basically like talk to people and they help you discover like what your next step is. And of course, like I said, I'm too busy. And so like the first half of college is basically like okay, like basically like, keeping your head above water and like finding your place in it. So I was like doing that, and so I was like, okay, like I wasn't lying to my mom because I said I was going to mass, and so whether I was going to mass every other week or every week, she didn't ask that. She just asked if I was going to mass. So I wasn't lying. So I was going to mass, but And when things got hard, like I was like, okay, well, I'm getting busy. Like, why am I taking an anatomy class when I'm a political science major? Like, I was like, things getting hard, and so like I stopped going to mass a little bit. Like got too busy, and man, did things start to go downhill a little bit. The funny thing is, like, even though like I wasn't involved in campus ministry and like going to church, like God was like, you know what? I'm not letting you go of you yet.
Hmm.
And so like I have a chance encounter one day, like I met um like this guy who ended up like because I got a flat tire and we ended up becoming like instant friends, like a mentor. He's basically like was like the person who calls you out on your poop.
Yep.
You need that in your life, and I got adult figure because like I went to school halfway on the other side of the country, right? And so if I really wanted to, like, I talk to my parents like once every day, and that's enough. Or my mom once every day, my dad once a week. My dad had a motto of like, if I don't hear from you, it's good. My mom's like, I always want to hear your voice every day. So like,
By the way, parents,
was going on when I
don't by the way, parents, don't necessarily be expecting this. Um, don't necessarily be expecting to hear from your child every day in college. Some kids are really good, and that's how they function. Other people, like me, call their like my freshman through junior year. I called my parents maybe once a month. So just throwing that out there. But Jack, please continue.
So like, it was basically like with that, right? So like I was in Baltimore by myself, right? So by myself for almost 3 years. Cause I did full years of school and 2 summer sessions. So like I was basically on my own little life, and so like I didn't really have that person to kick you in the butt
Hmm.
until I met this person, and she was like, "Hey, like you, it doesn't sound like you want to go to law school. Like, your heart's not into it, your mind's not into it. You're just gonna waste your money, your parents' money. Like I won't be your recommendation if you need a recommendation." That's what he told me, and I was crushed. I'm like, "What do you mean? Like I thought you were my friend. Like I spent all these like." He's like, "No, you're not. I'm not gonna be your recommendation. You don't want to do it. Come back to me when you figure out what you want to do, and I'll be your recommendation for any job." And so like I was like, well, this is sucks. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do. And at that time, like my senior seminar was basically Christian ethics, but the professor was really cool because he knows like a summer class in the summer with seniors about talking about Christian ethics is not gonna get anywhere. We started talking about basically like Christian ethics on a college campus. So we sat there and we debated all the finer points, like got to a conversation like talking about like hookup culture and stuff like that, and how basically it's like the worst thing you can do in so many different ways. And I sat there like listening to all these things. I'm like, wow, like this is not a good, like, this is not how like people should live their lives. I'm like, I started deeply thinking about my faith, and at that time, my dad was going through RCIA and becoming Catholic. So like when I was like light bulb finally click of like, hey, I'm coaching the kids, I'm learning deeply about my faith. My dad's taking this journey, and then he called me to be his confirmation spawner. Like that's my God moment where it clicked.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
it's like that's God's like working with kids, discovering your faith now, and you finally realize that like those grayish areas you do where it's like you can't say like, oh, it's not a major sin, but skill set aren't right. So like
Yeah.
it all came like that going like the call it the golden corral moment.
Yeah.
I call it taking a corner too fast. Like it just hits you, and then like you don't recover after that. Like you're up and you alert, and so like after that, it's like okay, like I can't be my dad's confirmation sponsor and help him through this while like doing the most like un-Catholic things, or just like those little things who like are wishy-washy with their faith, right? Because like I'm a big person, like with especially with our youth, like I'm not gonna tell them to go do something if I'm not doing it myself. So
Amen.
it's like, okay, like I need to go do this. So like that was major turning point in my life was just like people that God put me in life and like situations. Cause like the only reason I had to stay over the summer to take that class is because I transferred and Loyola didn't accept my transfer letters. I was taking a bogus class I didn't have to take, and that's
Wow.
what woke me up. At the same time, my dad decided, like, after years of marriage not being a Catholic, he wanted to be a Catholic. Combined with the fact that like 6 months ago, I decided to turn left and go and right on my normal route, and that's where I ran into my mentor. So it's almost like a perfect storm of everything going like chances and situations to lead me to the point like, oh geez, like this is where I found God, was in a basement of a classroom talking about the ethics of swiping right and hookup culture. So
Yeah. It's
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 like the most
amazing.
absurd thing. Yeah.
It's amazing the places that we find God, because oftentimes it's the places and times that we're not looking.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Exactly.
so I mean,
Like
yeah, I love it. God's gonna put himself in wherever he sees best, not where we expect him. And I think for me, the the biggest place, I guess, where I found God is um, in the people. You know,
mm,
Jack, you kind of talked about this a little bit. God puts people in our path. Um, you know, I remember being up, um, having late night conversations with one of my best friends who I still talk to this day. Like we talk pretty much every day. Um, uh, where I'm talking to him about, you know, during my freshman year, I was still pretty early overcoming my anorexia. So he would literally force me, like, I also got to a point when wrestling where I didn't feel hunger, so I'd forget to eat. And so every day he would see me, when he'd see me, he'd go, "Have you eaten yet?" And if I said no, he would drag me to the cafeteria to get food. Being up late, having deep conversations with him and some of our other friends. But the thing that was so important, and I think the biggest way that I found God in them, is that um, even not even necessarily just with them, but in other people that I encountered, like my household. So for those of you that don't know, households are basically like Catholic fraternities and sororities at Franciscan University. So I was in a household called Soldiers Under Command. Um, we focused on spiritual warfare and Saint Michael the Archangel. Um, and just the brotherhoods that I formed in college, where every single person was pushing each other to be better. Um, like we all had this desire to see the other person get to heaven. So whether that was, um, sitting down at one of our commitments and um, just opening up our hearts to people, or praying for other people who we knew were struggling, or saying, "Hey, I'm headed to daily mass. Do you want to come?" Um, Down to praying over people on the spot. Like, this is the one thing that I absolutely loved about going to Franciscan. That the culture at Franciscan is Catholic. Um, we would always call it the Franciscan bubble, because it is something so different and so vastly unique to the entire rest of the world, that unless you go and you spend an extended amount of time among the actual students at Franciscan, it's really hard to understand.
mhm.
Going up for a weekend, you only get a glimpse of it. Um, it's the entire school is a Catholic center. Is kind of a way of looking at it. Um, and so just the people that I met, and the people who uh, use like we're all of my best friends from college. We're all super nerdy. In fact, we were called the Nerd Herd, but that group of friends at no point stopped trying to push each other into a closer relationship with God. Um, I remember sitting at a card table with a bunch of my friends playing Magic the Gathering, the trading card game. Um, and one of my friends, we were just about to start the game, and one of my friends goes, "Why don't we open this in prayer?" And we all kind of looked over at him like, "Why didn't we think of that?" So we began opening up our gaming sessions in prayer. Um, so yeah, just the people around you and the people you choose to surround yourself with in college is vital to your college experience. It'll decide whether or not you uh, what how you live your life in college. It'll decide what your college experience is like. It'll decide who you become in college. Um, so, guys, we're currently at 45 minutes, so we're running kind of long here. Um, so just really quick, we're just gonna bullet point this last one. Um, what recommendations do you have for a high schooler going into college, or someone who's new in college, of ways of finding God during their time in college? John, we can go ahead and start with you.
I would say be open to opportunities that are going to push you to virtue. Um, so St. Paul talked about living in the world, but not of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Living of the world, not in the world, whichever order that's in. So yeah, if you want to get involved in Greek life, absolutely. I'm in Greek life, so I recommend it, but don't like do any unvirtuous things. Find that community that's going to push you to virtue. I said it last week for high schoolers, and like it's so much more applicable.
Mm-hmm.
And be open to like identity that you're going to take on in high school, not as like in high school, in college. Um, like not the identity of like the son or daughter of God, because that's our like whole identity, but like the identity that like you're independent now. Like you're not under mommy and daddy's roof anymore. Like it's time to be a big boy and big girl. Um, have fun. Like this is the most free time you're ever gonna have.
It's very
Um,
true.
we say it a lot. I say it a lot. Like, oh, I'm so busy. But like in reality, David and Jack laugh at me because I have more time than they do. Um, I
Yeah.
still have a break. So
Yeah, and now I have a daughter on top of it, so let's go. Um,
go to Virtue Catholic.
absolutely. Jack, what about you?
Like this thing that John said, right? Find your tribe, find the people that will hold you accountable, find people who have similar interests in faith as you, because at the end of the day, you can try to force yourself into something you're not, and you're just gonna be unhappy and not do great things. So find your tribe, find who always kick your butt to be better and to go to church. And it's so easy to go to mass and be accountable if you have a couple other people to go with you. So
Mm-hmm.
find those people. Um, and if you don't find those people who are over religious, just open yourself up to new experiences and ideas, and kind of let God work his way through in your life through like new ideas and new ways. Because you might think that you're not experiencing God in that moment, but I think we can all in this podcast say like point to references that we didn't really see God in the moment, but now we can point back and like, oh, that is God right there.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
keep your heart and mind open.
And I think that for me, they've been talking about a tribe, um, and I think that the one thing that I wish that I kind of did more of, but I also feel like I did a good amount of, is get involved. Whether you have Greek life, whether you have households, whether you have a Catholic center, um, get involved in something related to the church. There are Catholic sororities and fraternities. Um, there are really awesome Catholic Bible study groups. Just seriously, reach out to um, your center, your Catholic center, and uh, find out what they've got going on, and see what works into your class schedule. and then plan around it. Because everything else other than studying isn't going to be as important. You're going to think that it is, but I promise you it isn't. Um, because it'll be at those groups that you find lifelong friends who are going to be constantly trying to push you to a better life. So that's the big thing for me is get involved and don't use the excuse I'm too busy, or and especially if you're someone who, like me, struggles with depression at times. Well, at times, depression's a constant struggle. But if you're someone like me who struggles with depression, you need to be around people, and you need to be around people that you trust and people who love you. So make sure that you're building those communities, and make sure that you don't make excuses to not continue to be involved. So guys, thank you so much for joining us over here this week for our podcast. I know that we're kind of long on this session. We had a lot to talk about. Our 3 questions for you guys to discuss at home are parents, what was your college experience like? Youth, what are your expectations for your college experience? Sometimes our expectations can affect what actually happens, or affect how we feel about the things that do happen in college. Parents, how did you find God in college? And talk with your youth about setting a plan so that they can have that experience with Christ in college as well. Maybe you guys set up a plan for them to be missionaries at a summer camp, or attend mission trips, or just simply reach out to their Catholic center. But no matter what, definitely sit down and have these conversations. Sharing these can oftentimes build your relationship with your youth, especially because you're giving them heads up on the things that you struggled with. So that, the goal of parents is to make sure that our kids don't do the same dumb things as we did. So sit down, have this conversation with them. But anyways, guys, once again, thank you for joining us over here for the St. Simon and Jude Youth Ministry podcast. My name is David Mims.
I'm Jack the Wise.
My name is John Masters.
And we will talk to you guys next week. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.